It seems a little weird to talk about the water crisis with all the rain that we've been having this week, but I want to thank Doug for inviting me here to tell you, first of all, that it's still a big effing problem, and second of all, how technology is going to help. So the big problem with water, the big problem with water is that the bigger problem than seasonal drought in California is that our water infrastructure looks like this. So pretty much nationwide. Our water infrastructure is crumbling. It's all at EOL at the same time nationwide. So unlike energy, every individual municipal water district is going to have to upgrade their water infrastructure. And this is going to cost about $1 trillion nationwide. So this is going to take time. And there are additional challenges. Out here in the West, we've been overpumping groundwater for about 100 years, which means that in 12 states, we are completely out of groundwater, which means in the West, we're going to have to find new sources of supply. But the East doesn't get off scot-free. Because of climate change, they have excess precipitation, which means that their older combined sewers are overflowing into waterways, which means the only mechanism that water utilities have in the East to extend the life of this aging infrastructure is to ask people to conserve. Furthermore, in most places nationwide, we still have a rising population, which means that we have more people who need water, and we also have more people who directly and indirectly are adding things like antibiotics and industrial chemicals and other contaminants into the water supply that our water districts have to deal with and treat, which means we're going to see more Flint, Michigans. It's just a fact. So all of this adds up to say that for all of us, pretty much anywhere you live in the country, especially here in California, in the next decade or so, you're going to be asked to conserve water. You're going to have to. It's going to be a requirement. And your water bill is still going to go up a lot. So what is that new infrastructure going to look like? This guy, David Sedlak, who's awesome, he's one of my heroes. He's the co-director of the Berkeley Water Center and the author of a really good book called Water 4.0, which if you're interested in these things, I really recommend that you read. He says that this new infrastructure is going to be highly distributed. It's going to be very localized to the communities it's in and also the households and neighborhoods it's in. It's going to make increased use of water recycling, and it's also going to draw heavily on new sources of supply. So he means this at the municipal level and at the household level, but at Calliope we're really focused on households, so let's focus on households for a minute. So let's level set. This is what an average household in Northern California uses for water in a day. So an average household has 4 people, and the average household in Northern California uses 365 gallons of water a day, and that's 175 gallons indoors and about 190 gallons outdoors for their outdoor watering. And the most important thing to see here, so for that 175 gallon number indoors is pretty static nationwide. The outdoor number varies based on your climate and where you live. Southern California uses a lot more, which is really scary. But that indoor number, about 31 gallons of what you're using goes to leaks. So if an individual household, as it moves into this Water 4.0 infrastructure, what's that going to look like? As a first step, they should get really efficient. They should eliminate those leaks. So you could, for example, install a buoy on your house. I promise this is the extent of the shameless product plug for the union. You could install a buoy on your house, which would give you real-time information about where your water is being used, but also alert you early about those leaks and let you shut off your water when they occur, which allows you to eliminate those 31 gallons in leaks that are lost every day. That's about 10% of your overall water use. So an individual household will have to do that, become more efficient, know where their water is going. And that'll take them down to about 334 gallons per day. Does anyone here know what the targeted per household use per day is? Does anyone know? All right, so it's kind of obscure. So if all of you remember last year, Santa Cruz Municipal Utilities, if you live here in Santa Cruz, asked you to stay to 10 CCFs per month. That's a really bizarre number. What that translates into, it's too long to explain right now, but it's basically 250 gallons per day. So statewide, we're all trying to get to 250 gallons per day for a household, an average household of 4. So if you install a buoy, you get down to 334. The next step is to look at your outdoor water use. You could change your landscaping, or you could keep your existing landscaping, and because most people overwater by about 2x, you could install a smart irrigation controller like this one by Ratio and reduce your water use without changing your landscaping by about half. So those two steps alone, which everyone should do, and most people will have to do over the next decade, will take you below the 250-gallon target. But some people will go further, and they'll want to extend. So an individual household who wants to be in this Water 4.0 architecture, remember it's increased water recycling, and it's also other sources of supply, they could go further. The next thing you could do is install a whole house gray water system, which recycles your in-house water for outdoor use. If you installed one of these, like this one by Nexus E-Water, it would cost about 20 grand to retrofit into your home. And it would recycle all of your indoor gray water for outdoor use and reduce your overall demand to 144 gallons per day. And at that point, with your demand at that point, an average household would have lots of options for supply. For one thing, on the left, they could buy like a 4,000-gallon storage tank, which is about a month's supply at this demand rate. That costs about $400 a month. Or they could go further, and on the right, that's a condenser machine that literally makes water out of the air, potable water out of the air, even in climates like LA. And if you install 2 of those to make 150 gallons per day, that would be about 20 gallons. So your total capital investment would be $40,000 to be completely off-grid for water. Now I know this sounds totally crazy. These are technologies that exist today, and you could pay $40,000 and be completely off-grid for water. So how big will this market get? How fast will it develop? I don't know, but I think we could look at adoption of residential solar as a proxy. So if we look at that, we'd say in 2001, if those of you who lived here in 2000, 2001 probably remember the rolling blackouts for energy. That was sort of our moment of reckoning for energy. At that, believe it or not, in 2001, fewer than 1,000 homes had residential solar. I know that sounds crazy. It costs like $40,000 to install a residential solar array. And that was sort of the moment when people started thinking about that. By 2006, something called Title 24 was introduced in California. And it's a long story, but basically it required energy efficiency of new home builders as a condition to get permits to build. And that, plus the incentives that were created to support that, led to this massive adoption of residential solar to get to the point where we are today, where we have more than 1 million homes that have residential solar today. So how many people here either have solar panels on their house or know somebody who does? Right? Like, yeah, like more than half of them, right? So imagine, so off-grid water, let's imagine it might potentially follow the same path, the same kind of dynamics in play. So if you start our scale at 2016, where we had our moment of reckoning for water with the mandated reduction in use, it costs about 40 grand to go off-grid with water today. We've heard from California Department of Water Resources that by 2020, about the same time scale, about 5 years later, we're going to see an extension of Title 24 to require water efficiency in new home building. If the rest of the market development tracks like that, about 10 to 15 years from now, if you think about all the people you know that have solar, just as many people may be at least partially off-grid for water. So I know that's really fast, but that's actually something that's happening today. So, thank you.